Time to talk about Tiger King. I know a lot of you have binged on this. 34 million Americans have binged on this program. And for those of you who haven't seen it yet, spoiler alert, I'll tell you a little bit about what it's about. It's about a man running an exotic zoo where he features big cats and allows people who come to the zoo to hold a little tiger cub in their arms and take a picture for a price. Well, this series kind of focuses on this man. His name is Joe Maldonado Passage, but he's known as Joe Exotic. And Joe Exotic, during the course of the series, you see that he's got a feud going with a woman down in Florida named Carol Baskin, who runs a rescue for big cats. So that sort of becomes the plot of this series, at least part of the plot. There's many subplots. But in the end, again, spoiler alert, Joe Exotic ends up going to trial for the attempted murder for hire of Carol Baskin. He ends up getting convicted. And now everyone is talking about this. As a matter of fact, it came up today during the president's briefing. Take a look.
So one of the biggest rating hits of the coronavirus, aside from these briefings, has been a show on Netflix called Tiger King. Yeah. And the man who's the star of this is a former zoo owner who's serving a 22-year prison sentence. He's asking you for a pardon, saying he was unfairly convicted. Your son yesterday jokingly said that he was going to advocate for it, and I was wondering if you've seen the show and if you have any thoughts on pardoning Joe Exotic.
Which son? It must be Don.
It was.
I had a feeling it was Don. Is that what he said? I don't know. I know nothing about it. He has 22 years for what? What did he do?
He allegedly hired someone to murder an animal rights activist, but he said that he didn't do that, and he was.
You think he didn't do it? Are you on his side?
Are you
recommending a pardon?
No, I'm not advocating anything.
As a reporter, you're not allowed to do that. You'd be criticized by these. Would you recommend a pardon?
I'm not weighing in on Tiger King.
I don't think you would. I don't think you would. Go ahead. You have a question?
I do like Joe Exotic.
I'll take a look. Is that Joe Exotic? That's Joe Exotic.
Here's the amazing part. I mean, once Joe Exotic finds out that the president of the United States is talking about him, that's going to be like the biggest thrill of his life, because Joe Exotic just wanted to be famous. Anyhow, everyone knows Joe Exotic now. The president, I guess, knows who he is now as well. Joe Exotic has spoken from behind bars. This was in a tweet from Netflix. Apparently, someone got him on video speaking. Take a listen.
Go sit in a cage with your animal for a week. I mean, when I left the zoo and I sent my chimpanzees to the sanctuary in Florida, and imagine what my chimpanzees went through for 18 years, I'm ashamed of myself.
Almost sounds like a little bit of remorse. Still has the mullet, although the blonde streaks are now gone. All right, let's bring everybody in. Seema Iyer, Julie Grant, Ted Rollins. Seema, can you believe that someone brought it up at the president's briefing today?
Actually, so full disclosure, I was doing my makeup and I always watch the briefing because I find it to be very informative and entertaining. And he was asked about Joe Exotic. So half eyeshadow on, half eyeshadow off. I ran into the newsroom to tell our executive producer, and I said, oh my God, we have to do this tonight. We have to do this. And it came together. So it was great. It was great. It was amazing.
It is unreal. Ted, this is a guy who just wanted to be famous, and now he is famous.
Yeah, imagine, during this outbreak, all these serious questions during the daily briefing, and Joe Exotic comes up, and the president is intrigued by it. It was beautiful for him. I'm sure he loves it. I'm sure he's been told it's happened, and he is smiling from ear to ear underneath that mullet. Those bangs.
Now, in that tweet, he also spoke about the victim in the case, his rival, Carol Baskin.
I'm done with the Carol Baskin saga. It's now time to turn the tables and Joe get out of jail, a free man, and exonerated from all these charges.
All right, Julie Grant, he's focused on exoneration now. He demonstrated a little bit of remorse. What are you reading from Joe Exotic right now?
I think Joe Exotic is a man on a mission who needs an attorney. That's what I think. I think he needs an attorney. Reading that pro se lawsuit that he filed some time ago really just showed that that seems to be what he needs and where his focus is going to be from here on out. It seems like he's not looking backwards. It is what it is. The situation with Carol Baskin, we know that she was called to testify in the trial. He testified in his trial. That's all water under the bridge. And now he's moving forward. And I agree with you, Vinny. I think in that little clip, he's probably had a lot of time to think while he is sitting there in prison. And who knows? We heard President Trump say today he will take a look. So who knows? Joe Exotic wants to try anything he can, whether it's asking for a presidential pardon, whether it is filing this $94 million lawsuit, his direct appeal on the conviction, which is also pending. He's just pulling out all the stops, and he's got a lot of people lobbying for him as well on social media.
So, Vinny, I actually have represented some of these type of pro se claims, and it's interesting because they can at least have enough merit to go to trial. And then a lot of these district courts, what they do is they have these panel of pro bono lawyers. So I was one of those in the Southern District in the federal court in Manhattan. And this could go somewhere. It could go somewhere.
Well, the magistrate, though, took a look at it and said, well, wait a minute. You know, it looks like you're saying that you're not guilty. You've got an appeal going of your criminal conviction, so maybe we should get rid and dismiss the civil suit at this time. So I don't know. I mean, he filed this lawsuit, but it seemed like he was really trying to exonerate himself through a civil lawsuit. It was strange. Really strange, Seema.
That was a mistake, right? Well, again, this is the dilemma in doing a pro se lawsuit or pro se motion. But a lot of times, because they have so much time in their hand and because they have access to the law library, what often sometimes prisoners do will just rewrite. And then, of course, you have to befriend the jailhouse lawyer. You got to go around, you got to find the guy who's the jailhouse lawyer. And, you know, if I was in jail, I'd probably ask Ted. I'd say, Ted, I need you to help me write this motion because I'm not getting anywhere now. So, Ted, let's sit down and let's write the motion properly. And I'll keep doing it until I get it right.
Ted is a very smart guy.
Yeah, this is some co-ed jail that they have somewhere that I don't know about.
In my mind, there is a co-ed jail.
Yeah. You know, and everyone's, you watch the Netflix series and you think, maybe he was set up. Maybe this is kind of a thin case. Well, we spoke with one of the jurors who said there was a lot of evidence against Joe Exotic. Take a listen. There are a lot of people out there who will watch this miniseries and come out saying, how did he get convicted? There should have been other people arrested. There should have been other people charged. You heard the evidence. You sat on the jury. What would you say to people who've watched that series but weren't in the courtroom with you about issues of Joe Exotic being set up and other people being responsible here?
I would say that you're getting as much as the media is giving you. There is a lot of evidence that was not shown in the documentary. And give the jury some credit for, we heard a lot more than what they think we heard. So it's not like we convicted him on what everybody heard in the documentary. If that were the case, we wouldn't have, at least I wouldn't have been able to find him guilty. But I mean, the documentary's for entertainment only. They're not going to put anything in there that isn't going to shock them. And that's one thing this
shock you or think that, hey, there's more to the story.
Right. They just, it's sensationalized now. And so I think the jury comes off looking kind of bad because they didn't hear what we heard. But I can tell you that in deliberations, the murder for hire was the least amount of time spent on a verdict. We spent more time on the Tigers.
Ted, based upon the evidence in the documentary, he's not guilty according to this juror. That's amazing.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. So what I wish what else was there? What other evidence was out there that didn't come into the documentary that did come into the courtroom would be interesting to hear. because, yeah, it was a little thin in the documentary. You didn't believe any of the other characters that sort of set him up and that were working with informants. But yeah, obviously that you have to trust the system, and this juror is making that point. You don't know it all. We heard everything, and you got to trust him.
Yeah. Well, Julie Grant, you know, and again, you know, they were talking to President Trump about a pardon here, but if the public sentiment starts to build for Joe Exotic based upon the Netflix series versus the trial, I mean, that could be a little problematic, right? You want to evaluate a case based on what happens in a courtroom, not in a entertaining documentary.
Yes, you're right, Vinny. The court of public opinion is not what needs to matter here in terms of a legal remedy, if there is one, for Joe Exotic after this conviction. So yes, the trial record is what's going to have to be reviewed, and people can love him and express all the support they want. And that's the great thing about America. We're all entitled to our opinions. We can all enjoy binge watching Tiger King, enjoy seeing these interviews, and and wish him well. But yes, you're right. It all has to be done on the record. And it seems like my reading of what the magistrate judge, in looking at his pro se suit, was essentially saying in the recommendation to dismiss was that, look, you can refile something properly with merit. It's like your claim needs to match the legal action and relief that you're seeking. And they're not finding fault with him. They recognize he is pro se and isn't an attorney, and essentially saying kindly the suit was a little bit of a mess and some things are mixed up, and you can't sue these folks who have immunity, like the prosecutor, like the federal wildlife agent who arrested you. Those claims are being dismissed with prejudice because they were done in good faith with the evidence to back it up in court. So we'll see if he gets a lawyer and refile something. That's my best guess, Vinny.
I've got to think someone would sign up. I mean, it would be a very high-profile case for sure.
I'll do it.
Absolutely.
Julie Grant,
Seymour will do
Seema, Ted Rowland.
Wait, I thought I was.
Seema will sign up for that one. All right.